Rain hammered the old mountain house as if trying to force its way in. Wind bent the bamboo groves until they groaned like old ships in distress. And inside the dim room lit by a single oil lamp, 3 people sat with the silence of those who knew that the next words spoken could break everything, or repair what was left of it. James sat hunched forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tightly that his knuckles had turned white. Deep stayed close enough that her shoulder nearly brushed his, a silent anchor. His mother stood by the window, one hand gripping the wooden frame as though steadying herself against the weight of truths she had run from for decades. Her voice was not loud. Finally, she turned, but it carried the exhaustion of someone who had spent her whole life moving between duty and fear. James, if I don't say it now, I'll lose the right to say it forever. He didn't answer. And it was enough. He only lifted his head. His mother's breath trembled. It started long before you were born, she said. Long before your father and I ever knew what kind of man he would become. She sat down across from him. Folding her hands in her lap like a woman on trial. Your father wasn't always this way, not angry. Not cruel, not suspicious of everything you do. That was his curse. He used to dream. People who dream too loudly in a world like ours, they break in dangerous ways. Deep listened quietly. Her eyes softening. James's jaw tightened, not from anger, but from a painfully tender curiosity. He had spent years trying to hate his father, but the hatred never fully rooted. Now he realized he didn't want it to. His mother continued, when he was young, your father wanted to leave the factory. He wanted to study music. A small, almost embarrassed smile flickered. He played guitar beautifully. You wouldn't believe it now. James blinked, stunned. He had never seen a guitar in the house. His father forbade it. Never heard music, but his mother wasn't finished. Then came the accident with your uncle. Deep stiffened slightly. His uncle, the brother no one talked about. James inhaled sharply. That night, she said, your father wasn't the one who caused the accident, but he arrived first at the scene. He wasn't even there. He carried your uncle home in his arms, screaming for help, and the village, they blamed him. Someone needed a villain. Rumors started. He became one. Her hands shook. He lost everything, his dream, his freedom, his dignity. And he chose anger because anger was easier than grief. James swallowed. Hard. His father, the towering storm of a man who could snap with no warning, had once been the one drowning. And what about me? James asked quietly. Why? Why does he hate the choices I make? The life I want? His mother looked at him with eyes that were both proud and aching. Because when he looks at you, he sees everything he couldn't be. The room fell into a hush. Even the wind seemed to lean closer. Rain softened. Thunder cracked above them, shaking dust from the rafters. James rose and paced slowly, each step heavy with a lifetime he had never been given the chance to understand. Deep watched him with worry. "James," she murmured, "your father isn't your past, and he shouldn't control your future." "I know," he said, "but I don't even know who I'm supposed to be now." His mother wiped her eyes with the sleeve of her rain-soaked blouse. "Not his shadow. You are your own person, not his debt." He turned toward her, "But he sees me as his responsibility." "Or his failure." "No," she said firmly, "he sees you as his last chance." The oil lamp flickered violently. Throwing their shadows against the walls, three silhouettes overlapping, separating, merging again like a family trying to remember how to belong to each other. James exhaled, long and unsteady. "Mom. What do you want me to do?" "Live," she said. Just live in a way he never could. A sudden knock slammed against the wooden door. James froze, deep startled. His mother instinctively reached for him. The knocking came again, urgent, forceful, the kind that carried the sound of trouble. James stepped toward the door, but Deep grabbed his wrist. "Something's wrong." He listened. Wait. There, beneath the storm, were footsteps, uneven, heavy, more than one pair. A voice he recognized. And a voice. "James. Open the door, it's me, Lynn." Something happened at the factory. James's eyes widened. Never climbed the mountain in the rain. Lynn never came at night. Deep whispered, "What now?" James opened the door. Lynn burst in, soaked, panting, face pale with fear. His next words cracked the night in half. "James, it's your father." "He's missing." James's mother gasped. "And that's not all," Lynn said, voice trembling. They found his truck by the river. The door was wide open, and there was blood. The storm swallowed the last word. But the silence afterward was louder. James stepped backward as though struck, because in that moment, every wound he ever carried, every anger, every unanswered question, collapsed into something far more terrifying than hate. Something like fear, something like grief, and a truth he was finally ready to face. Whether he wanted to or not, he might still lose his father. Right when he was beginning to understand him, the storm raged on, the oil lamp quivered. And Lynn's breath came in frantic bursts, but inside the room, silence grew thick enough to choke on. James stood frozen, his expression emptied of everything except shock. Not anger. Not fear. Just the hollow disbelief of a son who had never imagined the word, gone, could apply to the one man he had spent his whole life trying to outrun. His mother was the first to break. She grabbed Lynn's arms, her voice cracking. Blood? How much? Whose is it? Did anyone see him? Lynn shook his head. Drenched hair clinging to his face. I don't know. The workers found the truck near the river fork. Door open, engine still warm. They called me because they knew you were here. He glanced anxiously at James. I ran straight up the mountain. Deep steadied James with a gentle hand on his back. He didn't react. His eyes were somewhere miles away, at the riverbank, perhaps, or in the fragments of memories he had tried so hard to bury. Finally, he whispered, "We have to go." The rain was unforgiving as they left the house, thick. Cold sheets that stung their skin and blurred the narrow trail. Mud sucked at their feet with each step, and the bamboo forest swayed wildly like dark silhouettes warning them to turn back. His mother followed close behind, clutching her scarf around her head. Deep walked beside James, refusing to let him take a single step alone. Lynn led the way with a lantern that kept sputtering in the wind. The storm was loud, but James's mind was louder. Every harsh argument with his father flared in his memory, every bitter silence at the dinner table. Every slammed door, every moment he had wished to be anywhere but home. And underneath all of it, every secret thing he had ever wanted to ask the man. Would they ever speak again? Would the truth ever come full circle? Deep seemed to sense the spiral. She squeezed his hand, wordless, steady. He didn't squeeze back, but he didn't pull away either. They pushed onward. The trail opened and the rushing sound of the river thundered into their ears. Lanterns flickered ahead, workers huddled under a tarp, soaked to the bone, faces drawn with worry. The truck sat crooked on the riverbank, one wheel buried deep in the mud. Its headlights cut through the storm like the eyes of a wounded animal. James approached it slowly. The door hung open. The key was still in the ignition. A smear of dark reddish-brown streaked the edge of the seat. His mother pressed a shaking hand to her mouth. Deep whispered, "Oh God." James touched the bloodstain. His fingers trembled, not because of the blood, but because the seat was still warm. Which meant, he had been here recently. Lynn stepped forward. Too recently. The men searched upstream and down. They didn't find him, only this. He held out a small object. James's breath stalled in his chest. It was a broken guitar pick, the kind his mother had mentioned only hours earlier, something his father had never once allowed in the house. Something he must have carried secretly, quietly, like a relic of the boy he once had been. James closed his eyes. The storm roared louder, as if swallowing his world whole. A shout suddenly cut through the chaos. Over here, lights. Bring lights. They all ran. Down the bank, under the old wooden bridge. A group of workers were gathered around a fallen branch lodged against the rocks. At first, James saw nothing. Then a glint, metal catching lightning. He pushed through the crowd. There, tangled in the debris, half buried in mud, was a piece of torn fabric. Deep's heart dropped. Soaked. Heavy. Dark. James recognized it instantly. It was the sleeve of his father's work jacket. His mother collapsed to her knees in the mud, sobbing, "Not yet." But James did not break. His face hardened, not with denial, not with grief, but with a sudden sharp clarity. "This didn't happen by accident," he said quietly. Lynn looked at him, startled. "What do you mean?" James pointed to the sleeve. "There are clean cuts, not tears, something sharp." He looked upstream, or someone. Deep felt a chill run down her spine. "James," she whispered, "are you saying?" He turned to them all. Rain carving streaks down his face like war paint. "My father didn't fall." He paused, jaw tightening. Someone wanted him gone. Wind howled through the valley as if in agreement. Just then, a second object drifted through the rushing water. Bumping against a rock before circling back toward the bridge, one of the workers grabbed a long pole and hooked it. When he pulled it free, everyone froze. James's father's wallet. It was a wallet. Deep held her breath as James opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were soaked bills, a bent ID card, and a slip of paper folded twice. James unfolded it. Protected inside plastic, his mother gasped. His eyes widened in shock. Deep whispered, "What is it?" James looked up at them. Voice barely audible through the storm, "It's a name." He swallowed, "and a message." He read it aloud. "If anything happens to me, tell James the truth about the night your uncle died. He deserves to know who was really there." Lightning split the sky. Deep grabbed James's arm. Lynn stumbled backward. His mother covered her mouth with trembling fingers, because now, for the first time, the story was no longer about a missing father. Or an accident, or years of silence. It was about a lie buried so deep it had shaped their entire lives. And whoever wanted his father gone, wanted that lie buried forever.